Alright, so I'm briefly going to try and talk about good story writing for super strong characters in Marvel Comics. I'd really appreciate if you bear with me because this entire episode was previously re-recorded and then my computer ate up my stuff. That being said, I'm going to talk about various examples that are mainly in two camps. That's Ret-Cons, retroactive continuities, which is kind of like when you're writing, going back and saying, oh, this thing never happened. And mental blocks, which is in some form or another having the main shortcoming be in a mental sense. So whether that's externally placed, like when Professor X messes with Wolverine's brain so parts of his mind aren't fully to access, or if it's just like holding back. However, in this video I'm going to focus on examples of characters that have mental blocks, not merely individuals that hold back from killing others like Spider-Man or Captain America or various other people. My criterion for this episode are gravitas, character depth, and does the story make sense. Now, gravitas and character depth is just completely based on how the writer is doing things. I guess it's also based on how the editor tells them to do it. What you get is what you get with these when you get them. Okay, so in the Ret-Con camp we have Iceman. Iceman's powers are pretty much given an overhaul when Emma Frost, a random telepath, takes control of his body and figures out, oh, this guy's like a world destruction class threat. In this instance, this character has been rewritten and changed in the late 90s and begins to exhaust the imagination or suspension of disbelief of some readers in the audience, kind of like myself, because since the 60s, this dude has just been a snowball guy. He's like the abominable snowman. Let's go to a different one. Okay, there's Thrawn. Okay, now Thrawn in Marvel Comics is not in the main Marvel Comics. He's in Star Wars. Okay, he's not a universal threat, but this is just as a juxtaposition to normal Retcon. When they're adding this guy into the continuity, they take him his main like character shortcoming isn't really he's like terrible at politics, but other than that, he's an alien in a really xenophobic culture. That's about it. Okay, does he have gravitas? Absolutely. Okay, does Iceman have gravitas? Yeah, because he's super powerful, but it's just like kind of random and out of left field. Okay, character depth. Thrawn is a very in-depth thinker. He thinks through things like Sherlock Holmes. Does Iceman? No, absolutely not. He doesn't even know. Somebody has to tell him. He has to have his entire body possessed to know he has any power. Both stories make sense. How the Iceman one takes you back and you go like, wait, what? What was the last 30 years of comics? The example is one's lazy writing, the other's not. I think the example for this is that retcon should be used extremely sparingly. There should be few cases, and it should be the discretion of extremely capable writers. Timothy Zahn's a good example because in the Star Wars universe, he can take retroactive continuity and use it well. He can bend the rules a little bit rather than completely breaking them and pissing people off and sort of making people's suspension of disbelief go into the gut. Okay, next we're talking mental blocks. Okay, mental blocks. Good example, Captain Marvel in the MCU. She doesn't remember everything. She has like selective amnesia that's artificially placed in her mind to keep her sort of docile and working for her overlords. Okay, that one works. It's alright. In terms of gravitas, yeah, there's a little bit there. There's some stuff at stake. Character depth, yeah, she has a past. Is it like Sherlock Holmes? Like that's the main focal point? Absolutely not. It's not meant to be. Does the story make sense? Yeah, it does. It rates pretty well. Problem case is the Sentry because this guy is pretty much like an old hero that's kind of randomly said to have all these superpowers and he's like super powerful and whatever, but then a lot of heroes don't remember him. So, because I think this is just like a character that has some mental blocks because his mind is controlled by this super powerful entity, so this is external, but it's within his mind. So, okay, this is a retcon because it's kind of like, oh wait, there's this superhero that nobody knew about. Super powerful dude. Okay, so it's like a problem case. In terms of gravitas, it's definitely there. Character depth, it's really not because you don't know the character. For me, it's nothing. Does the story make sense? Yeah, absolutely. So it's like 66, okay, because you got 2 out of 3. I feel like I mentioned this, but just for the record, there's a whole bunch of cases of mental blocks. I'm only trying to go through the extremely powerful ones. The next one that I feel like is most important, probably the one I'll end with, is Matthew Malloy. His powers were blocked by Professor X, who, when he died, all of his mental blocks went haywire because the psionic power of a dead guy is non-existent, okay? So Matthew Malloy is just like a dude who just has reality warping powers. And it's like the gravitas is definitely there. The character depth is developing. So that's kind of interesting. And then does the story make sense? Like, yeah, absolutely. You score higher than like an 80 in my book. So overall, it's like mental blocks in terms of Marvel Comics writing makes more sense for continuing to engage in the fiction. Like, it doesn't completely suspend your disbelief. It doesn't break the fiction enjoying element in your mind. And that's what I feel like retroactive continuities, retcons can do. And so I'm definitely prefer mental blocks because overall in the cases that I examine now, there's a whole lot more cases. So if I was going to do an in-depth, like study of like all the Marvel cases, You need a bigger sample size. That being said, I feel like retcons break off from existing fiction logic to create a separate story or stories that lose people, because ultimately at times it's really jarring to shift the story so abrupt. This is all to say, it's just been a quick study, a quick look. If you differ on that, I'm totally cool with that, and I'd like to start a discussion. So by all means, let's go through it. Write some different examples and what you like about them, what's better, the character. Do you have another criteria that you like to evaluate these on? Do you have no idea what I'm talking about? That's great. Let's talk about it. Thank you for watching. I hope to see you again. Honestly, I hope your Halloween is excellent.